Welcome back, everybody. I appreciate that was a very short amount of time, but I think it was a good segue into, really stretching that muscle, tuning in, and it takes work. It takes elbow grease, and some of that elbow grease, if you're familiar with that phrase, the hard graft of listening is being able to manage those different streams of attention and the internal chatter. Those anxieties about emails left unanswered, about projects that haven't had our attention. And I think it causes us to really think about, if we're going to have an effective conversation, how do I prepare effectively for that? So we were going to have a little break, but I think it's really important that we let's just have a look. How did it feel to listen and not ask any questions? Yeah, how did it feel? What did you notice? To simply keep stum and not say anything. Was that difficult, enjoyable, challenging? Andrea, what would you like to say?
Yeah, for me, it's very challenging because it's so interesting, and everybody, what people tell you, and not to interrupt them in their mind and thoughts. I think this is very difficult, and I told my partner that when I'm having situations like that, I have always a sign here somewhere, listen. So that because it's not my job to interrupt, first to listen and then choose what path we will follow.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. And it is difficult because we ourselves are stimulated by what we're hearing. We're having our own response. But as you say, it's having that kind of taking a pause before we lean in and offer from our own perspective, allowing the client to really explore for themselves. So I think one of the ways that, as Andrea's just pointed out, that really distinguishes, if we can go back to the slides, please, Iveta, onto our second slide. Because what I'm now going to be talking about is asking great questions. And that's a feature of mentoring that really distinguishes it from other forms of more kind of rote learning, transfer from one to the other. There's something a bit more sophisticated happening in mentoring. We still bring as mentors the breadth and the depth and the richness of our experience, but we use that we harness that in the service of asking great questions in relation to the client's goal. So it's this shift from telling to asking. And the reason for this is that mentoring believes is that we are infinitely resourceful, and the mentee that's bringing the issue, they understand that situation best, its particularities, its difficulties. And mentoring invites you to trust in that process of joint discovery, that clarity will emerge if together we can do some great thinking, and that transformational change and learning can happen, not by simply replicating what's been done in the past, but by understanding better the present circumstances. And those wicked problems of our current world require collaborative thinking to attend to its nuances and challenges. Hence the quote, if the mentor and mentee are to become travelling companions, the mentor's questions provide the quality of light by which they will travel. And the quote goes on, simply worded questions can help to remove barriers, unlock hidden information, and surface potentially life-changing insights. So what is an effective question? And I think, Sharka, you put a note in the chat earlier. It's going to be an open question. They're the ones that ignite thinking. They're the ones that really encourage the mentee to think. They're not sitting there being the recipient of somebody else's insight or knowledge, but it's helping them to think, to get closer to the goal that they're looking to achieve. What is the outcome? So with the end in mind, you as mentor are going to be thinking, what is it this mentee needs to think about and consider? What's within my field of vision as an experienced person who's done some of this stuff? What can I invite them to consider and be noticing and be attentive to help them really get closer to a solution or something that they can experiment to. So open questions, the how, the what, the who, the when, the which, open up those fields of inquiry in a way that closed questions or leading questions really won't do. So great questions are those that are going to generate curiosity, provoke thought, stimulate reflective conversation, question some underlying assumptions. What is it that the individual's finding difficult? What might they be assuming? What limiting beliefs may they be having that's making this feel difficult when it perhaps isn't? Questions to invite them to consider opportunities as well as what are the barriers, and invite creativity in the service of that forward movement. So questions are just so important. And if we had time, I would be asking you to, I mean, by all means, those who have experience of mentoring, please shout out or put in the chat some of those questions that you may have used previously that have helped unlock thinking. But certainly throughout the entirety of the mentoring process, questions are important at every stage to help establish what are the goals. How is it that we need to work together to do this stuff for the change to happen, for us to get the results that we want to see? How are we doing? How is our work? How is it feeling? How is it landing? Is it delivering the shifts that you're wanting to see? What more? What else do we need to do? So questions throughout are absolutely imperative to move things on. So as Yvette is saying, they shouldn't be leading, and remembering that this is a mentee-led process. The mentor is here in the role of servant in a way, in the service of the client's agenda. Is there anything anyone wanted to add? Feel free to unmute at this point about questions. And one thing I'll just add before I invite any comments is the use of the why question. When we think about making change, often we want the most powerful question to elicit the most transformative outcome. The why question can be powerful, but it can also raise defenses. Say, for example, a client said, well, mentors said, well, what have you tried so far? Let's explore what you've tried that hasn't quite worked. And the mentee, well, I did this and this. And the mentor goes straight in with why. Now, it will come down to how that question is posed, the tone of voice, the speed, etc. But that could raise defenses. It can lead an individual to feel that they need in some way to justify their course of action. So just be a little bit careful with the why question, okay? And hopefully you're understanding the reason for that. And I'm just going to have a look in the chat here at some of the suggestions. Yeah, Yvette, some questions. Did you like the workshop today? So Chris, some examples of an open question. Okay, so let's say the mentee is brought, well, as a result of the mentoring, I want to be in a position to do X. And as mentor, I say, and what makes that important? And so really tapping into the mentee's motivation. You know, why is this important for them? What impact are they hoping to have? Is that an example of a closed question, an open question for you, Chris? And a closed question, so what did a closed question is going to deliver an answer, is going to almost like a yes, no. Did you do that because? So it's saying, it's kind of putting a suggestion for the mentee to either verify or disprove. It's not really going to get them anywhere. It might help to clarify something, but it's not going to deliver any great outcome. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and according to our has anyone got any questions about questions before we go on? Anybody got any questions that anything clarification they're not sure about? I mean, another question is, how would you feel about me sharing something from my experience? And that's, you know, you've got lots of experience as mentors. This is sounding something similar to something I dealt with previously, and I'd really like to share that with you. Would that be okay? That's an open question. The client go, no, you're all right, because that was back then. I need to deal with now, and what I need from you is X. So you can share from your own experience, and that, you know, we're talking about knowledge transfer and you know, really cultivating our knowledge base for future challenges. So there's nothing wrong with sharing from experience, but you can ask the question first, would it feel appropriate at this point in time? I'm going to stop talking. I keep offering you the opportunity to ask questions and then talking over it. Has anybody got any questions they want to ask at this point in time?
While I was thinking about questions, what occurred to me when Suzanne was talking, none of us is perfect and none of us knows everything. So part of the building trust is also admitting when we don't know, because that's something which makes trust building so good. You know when you can rely on something your mentor says, you know, when they say something, you can trust it. When they say, I don't know, you know where you are. So sometimes admitting, I actually don't have answer to that, but I think, you know, just make it crystal clear when you're sharing facts, when you're sharing something what works, and when you actually don't know, making yourself vulnerable, it doesn't really decrease your value as a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, you know, a lot of the literature around mentoring is about how democratic a process it is. You as mentors will gain a lot, as well as be, you know, giving of your time and attention. It will spark new thinking in you, and you will learn from your mentees. So it's definitely not a one-way process. So I think what's really important is that you have an experience of, you know, setting out together on this journey. And we've got lots of supporting documents for you to share after today. And one of those is, you know, thinking about the phases of mentoring, setting out, getting down to it, you know, clarifying the work that you're going to do together and how you're going to be in that relationship, how you maintain momentum and time and manage your sessions. So we have got lots of supporting documents for you. I just want to give you today an experience of having that initial conversation. So it's just gone 11:10.
Suzanne, I think there's some people who would really do this comfort break. I think if we break for a few minutes and then come back, I think it might be quite good. For those of you who come back faster, if you put in chat, you know, what are you taking away from this? What are your main takeaways? Or any questions, any comments, that would be brilliant. Okay, I think.
Okay, so if you can just take up that bio break a few minutes, and then when we come back together, we're going to do some of this, have another conversation. Yeah. Okay.
Just take your camera off so we know when you come back, you switch it on again. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so as people are coming back into the session, just to recap what we're going to do in the next part of the session, give you some more time together, and I promise this won't be cut short. To have 10 minutes, you'll be put back into pairs again in breakout rooms, and this time you will have 10 minutes each. In the role, I mean, it's not cheesy role play, I promise, but you are potentially mentors, have mentees, to each take the part of the mentor and mentee and then swap. And the purpose of that conversation is to have an experience of you setting out together. So you're going to be talking about what's the learning that we want to achieve? What is the goal for the mentoring? What do we want that is different as a result of this collaborative form of learning? What is it that the mentee wants to be able to do, or to know, or to feel differently about? So it's using this conversation to really clarify what is the purpose of this mentoring relationship? What is the goal that it seeks to serve? So trying to achieve clarity on that. And then, so what? If that's what we're about, if this is why we are coming together, if that's the purpose for our mentor and mentee pairing, what does that mean? What's it going to look like? How often will we meet? Where will we meet? If face-to-face, probably it's going to be virtually. How long will we talk for? Will it be an hour and a half? How frequently? If this issue is, if the change I want to see is I've got a deadline and I need to have something in place by X date, how frequently do we need to come together, and what actions will be taken between meetings to help that goal be achieved? So it's to give you, the purpose of this exercise is to give you an experience of having that initial contracting conversation. It sounds very formal, but it's very much a contracting with a small c. It's about an agreement. How are we going to work together? What are our respective roles? What can you expect from me? What are our responsibilities? And once again, in the supporting documents we'll share with you, there will be some bullet points of things that you will cover as you set out. So this isn't about seeing whether you get it right today. It's just to give you an experience of having that conversation. So Chris, if I may ask you to pair individuals up. As I said, 10 minutes, you are going to be mentor, 10 minutes as mentee. I had to do that at least once during the session, didn't I? Have to be on me. I had a wonderful time, and I had some great questions asked me. Fabulous. I've got some clarity on the issue that I had, so that's great. Really want to hear from you now. How was that? Well, I suppose twofold questions. How did it go? And what do you envisage? You're going to go away from this session and you're going to be introduced to your mentor or mentee, and you are going to start this journey, this mentoring journey. What challenges do you anticipate? So two things. How was it having that? What did you notice as part of that contracting conversation that you started to have? And with that in mind, do you think there are any challenges that we could usefully discuss here today to help you feel confident in getting started?
Can I share something?
7 minutes is not very long, Peter. Dominica, I'm coming to you. Peter, I would say that a contracting conversation is definitely going to be your first session. Really setting out, somebody mentioned boundaries earlier, what mentoring is and isn't. Definitely I'd spend an hour on contracting. Dominica, sorry, my dear, come back to you.
Yeah, so with Francesca, we discussed the issue of building this trust and confidentiality via Zoom, that ideally it would be nice to build that kind of mentoring relationships on site, but it's not really given in this time. So how do we deal with this, for example?
So how do you have, so after, hopefully I'm answering this question, after today you will, once you are paired, you'll be able to have that full contracting conversation. Does that answer your question, Dominica?
I think Dominica asked how you actually start building trust. Was that if I may offer some suggestions, the more you learn about each other, the more ground you have for building trust, you know, and it's really good to ask questions, even, you know, how can I help you? What would be the best way I can help you? You know, what do you expect from me? What are your expectations of this whole process? Trying to find out most. And then when you have sessions, you know, at the end of mentoring session, just say, you know, how was it for you? Was it helpful? Would you want me to do more of something? Or, you know, was something I did unhelpful? And, you know, through constant sort of learning and seeking feedback, you gradually build really good relationship. Does it answer sort of?
I think trust is enormous, isn't it? And we'll each have our own indicators that we'll look to, our own criteria to determine whether we feel a sense of trust. And it will be lived, it will be felt, it will be tested. But I think it's something that you need to cover at the contracting stage. If this is going to be a useful mechanism for learning for me, what do I need to be sure of? What was going to help me feel safe here? And it may be about the importance of non-judgmental, keeping to promises. But I think it's perhaps going to be incremental and grow over time. But certainly the mentor being themselves as much as themselves as they can be and sharing of themselves will help to establish rapport and a sense of equity. But certainly we've got lots of, Dominique, you asked about closing a relationship. We've got some documentation that will help you go through the journey. But certainly time parameters for a session, 5 minutes towards the end. We're coming towards the end of the session today. What are you going to take away? What are you going to do now? Because obviously all of this talking is in the service of action. The mentee isn't going to see any substantive change without doing something differently. So it's about the mentee going away with a clear sense of their next steps between now and next time I meet you. I'm going to contact X. I'm going to experiment with X. So certainly bringing the session to a close, taking a moment to reflect what worked well, what resonated for you, and what was going to happen next. But we've got some questions in the resources, Dominica, to help you to do that. Peter, you've unmuted. Did you have an observation or a question?
I think, yes, it's very interesting when you say that the contracting discussion is at least 1 hour. I was making the observation that even in 7 minutes, there was such a fascinating sort of fount of information emerging. And I guess that is what we would build the relationship on. There seemed to be an awful lot there that I found really, really interesting. And I think the area of work that Irakli is doing and our experience, there are a lot of overlaps. So that was a really, really good start. And it felt exciting that we could then build a contract of trust. But yeah, 7 minutes was like sort of just a very quick scratch on the surface, as it were. But interesting, very helpful the way you describe the building of trust around this to really cement a firm contract at the start.
Thank you. And as you recognise those overlaps and underlaps, they can be brought into the conversation to help establish rapport and, you know, a sense of we're in this together. We've got some joint interests here. We have a common purpose, and that can make the work feel even more impactful and important. Andrea, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like to share that to the question how you build trust via Zoom. I started my actual professional work when the COVID-19 pandemic started. So until today, I never meet my colleagues in person. And I can tell you that what Suzanne told us is really trust building. Like, yeah, how do you come in? How do you check out today? Yeah, what is disturbing you today? Like for example, I'm having a bad headache today, and these little things, yeah, little bricks build a big wall of trust after a time, of course. Yeah, being reliable and stuff like this. Everything you said.
And we may not know someone well enough as a result of the process to say categorically, I trust you, but it has to be good enough. And I think part of the relationship getting off to a good start is understanding what good enough looks like. And it is possible to develop trust over Zoom. I've, assured my coaching clients, no one's in the room with me. I've kind of shown them, this is where I'm working today, this is my view out the window, and helping them to settle and arrive and feel comfortable, and that I'm human to human. I'm not an expert. I'm here to listen. I'm here to sit alongside you. I'm in this with you. Any other comments or questions, perhaps about what do you envisage the challenges of working in this way being? We've talked about working in the virtual space. What else might prove difficult, do you think, that we could think about now?
One of the things that's come up just in arranging this is the kind of coming months, and especially with kind of food and agricultural initiatives, just finding time. I wonder if you've got anything to say about kind of that side of things, the more logistical side.
Yeah, I think that there's got to be an investment here, isn't there? If you're wanting to see some significant change and not just be in the merry-go-round of what is, then it does require personal investment. But it doesn't mean that these conversations can't be combined with, walking coaching is something I do with clients. We go on a walk around campus. We're not looking at one another, but we're still thinking out loud, so combining activity. And thinking about timing, when realistically is going to work so that it's worth us coming together. So thinking about timing, where you do it. But I think if there is a level of investment here, and we're talking about, an hour of your time, which could deliver, a breakthrough insight that could really be a deal breaker, not a deal breaker, a game changer, shall we say. I would encourage you to invest in this. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go back to Iveta at this point. We've talked about the differences between coaching and mentoring earlier in that Venn diagram. So Iveta's just going to revisit that for us now.
In a very, very, very brief way. It's okay. What we talk about today is mentoring, and what we offer to each other is mentoring. What Suzanne and I want to offer you as well, or what you might want to seek outside of this project, is coaching. And both coaching and mentoring help in different way. Mentoring, as we said, you're sharing expertise, you're sharing experience, but we can be sometimes in the point in our careers where to have somebody who's completely independent from our personal and professional circle becomes incredibly helpful, who can offer us safe space to clear our convoluted thoughts, to identify what are our priorities, and who can help us to move on the journey, who provides accountability. So this independence brings different benefits than closeness of mentoring relationships. And from our experience, what we do, people very often discuss their career progression or not progression, being in the new role, implementing new management skills. Peter mentioned, instigating change. Coaching and mentoring is a huge part of supporting people going through change. And very often confidence, feeling like I'm not in the right place, I'm imposter. How I communicate effectively with people to get my message across. Gaining work-life balance, we've been zoomed to absolute death lately during the last couple of years. So how I actually make this balance, and for all those conversations, sometimes this independence is incredibly beneficial. So if you really want, both Susanne and I are open to have a discussion about coaching. Please feel free to email us. Very, very briefly, key points to sum it up. I'm not going to ask you what you're taking away, but key points for mentors: really enjoy it. You are not responsible for solving people's problems. That's a key distinction. Don't assume this role. Listen, but don't be afraid of silences. Use lots of open questions so you can have really nice, deep, stimulating conversations. Advice, but don't tell people what to do. That usually creates opposite reaction. Confidentiality. Don't talk about anything what you discuss with your mentee. And sometimes it can happen that the person might need different type of help. They get depressed, there's quite a lot, and it's very much outside of our skills. Discuss with your mentee to consider other help, counseling or so on. Mentees, you are definitely responsible for your own actions. Think about before any mentoring sessions, get prepared so you can get maximum out of it. Clearly think about what you want to get out of it. How can mentor best help you? Maintain the boundaries. Don't misuse this relationship. And trust is built even through small things like really coming to the meeting on time or not cancelling too many times. Sometimes life happens, but have respect. If the relationship doesn't work, don't take it really personally, because this is relationship. It has to work for both of you. This is my cue to stop talking, stop sharing, and pass on to your Chris. And in last few minutes, we have time for questions, and we have time to actually discuss practicalities, how you're going to make this happen.
Great, thanks, Iveta. Luke, do you have slides to hand, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll sort of wrap up a little bit, but can you just share your screen actually, Chris, just briefly,
Yeah.
and then whilst I'm talking, and then I might share my screen. I want to share something else as well in a moment. Can you hear me okay? Just a quick thumbs up.
Yes.
Good.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, so I hope this has all made sense to you guys. I hope that it's been useful for you to get us a kind of a shared baseline kind of understanding about what we're talking about here, because we've used words like coaching and mentoring in quite quite vague ways to now. We've sort of said we're going to be doing this, and we've had this sort of first kickoff session, and I really hope that you've enjoyed it and you've had some kind of you're going to take something from this, and you're going to use this energy to really to move forward. So don't worry too much about the text on the left hand side of this screen. It's more about the time frame on the other side that I want to draw your attention to. So at the moment we're in June. I mean, somehow we're in June already. It feels like we should still be in February or something, but we're in June. And the intention now is that for most of you, I think nearly all of you, you have either all been matched together with a mentor and a mentee, and you should have been informed of that. And for those of you that have not yet been confirmed who your match is, don't worry, we will be confirming that in the next day or so. All right, it's sort of everything is almost there, but hopefully you will already know who is either going to be your mentor or mentee, and vice versa. Okay, the intention is to have 2 interactions between now and September, a minimum of 2 interactions, and they can take place but in the way that is most suitable or most convenient for you. Okay, so maybe a Zoom call, maybe a phone call, maybe even in person if that's even possible. And that the intention there is that if you have those 2 sessions between now and September, that's going to give you some time to establish those ways of working, as we've talked about earlier, the kind of things you want to address, and also to identify how you're achieving what you want to achieve in this relationship. If I can just share my own screen very, very briefly, if you just stop share a second there, Chris. I just wanted to share a copy of the MOU. Just 2 seconds, guys, 2 seconds. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see a copy of a Word document that looks very scary and full of text?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what we're going to call a memorandum of understanding. Okay. Don't worry, it's really a way of saying this is kind of the basis for your relationship between the mentor and the mentee. Okay, and I'm going to share this document with you all later. And I'm also going to produce a short video that explains what I'm kind of saying now, but in a much more effective way. What this memorandum of understanding is that when the mentor and mentee meet for that first occasion, we can pre-populate all this information. The idea is that you will set the date, you will have in the meeting, you can have this document in front of you on a Zoom call or on a piece of paper. You can note down the date that you're meeting. And then, as we were practicing earlier in those exercises that Iveta and Suzanne were leading for us earlier, there's a chance for you with your mentor and between you to sort of talk about how you're going to work together. And there's some prompts here in this document that help you to think about that. What do you want to achieve through coaching and mentoring? So the mentor in this conversation might ask that question, the mentee can respond and talk about that. Again, make sure that those aspirations that you talk about are very realistic and achievable. It'd be very difficult to try and achieve in this mentoring program something that's like I don't know, change the world overnight. You know, it's got to be achievable and realistic. Mentees and mentors should think about what the indicators of success might look like. And that might be quite difficult to do, but it's worth talking about so that we can understand what changes are happening between now and at the end of the program. Finally, on this document, you'll write down any agreed actions and also the dates of any future encounters that you can agree. So, as I said, a minimum of 2 encounters between now and September. It's a good idea at the end of your first session to try and arrange the next one. Finally, then there's just space to have some other information that comes out of the meeting. And then what we want to do is with this document is for the mentor to send this completed agreed document to me, and I can give you my details. They should be on this form anyway. Yeah. And this will then be archived in a confidential space within our system. But I just want to stress that you don't have to put everything that you talk about on this document. So if there's anything that's personal or you want off the record, it doesn't have to go on there. What we really want to think about for this document is what you're going to do and what kind of success might look like. And the reason for that is we want to be able to understand what this coaching and mentoring program is delivering, what impact is it having, what change is really happening, what's really going on. So yeah, hopefully, I'm just conscious that we've only got a couple of minutes left of this meeting, so I'm just going to close that. That's kind of the next step, okay, is to sort of, I'll share these documents with you and a supporting video, and I will then, once I've shared those documents, you can then arrange a meeting between the mentor and the mentee, and that becomes your first encounter where you would agree on these principles, which becomes part of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, or the contracting that was talked about earlier. Does that make sense, guys? I'm aware that I've just thrown quite a lot of information in a very short space of time. Does anybody have any immediate questions linked to that?
There's a question in the chat about whether it's coaching or mentoring. I think that the answer to that is that it's mentoring at this stage. What's maybe confusing things is that the task is called coaching and mentoring, and also that the project's called coach. So, but yeah, on the advice of Suzanne and Iveta, we're really focusing on mentorship because it is a less technical undertaking and because it's more rooted in expertise. But yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yes, we offered coaching as something extra if you feel that might be helpful to you to develop skills as a mentor and have some coaching for that, or in any other way, you know, which might be helpful to you to support your work on this project. So this is something extra.
And also just to say as well that, so let's say you have this first kind of conversation, this first encounter with your matched mentor and mentee. It might be that after that session, actually, it's not right, the match isn't right, or actually you've covered everything, and that's fine. Just let us know that that's the situation. Ideally, what we want is for you to have not finished that relationship. We want you to have, you know, multiple encounters and multiple options to learn. But please do, if there's a sense that it's not the right match, then you need to let us know, and we can change the approach. I think that this coaching and mentoring, or this mentoring process as well, we're very keen for it to be collaborative and for us to co-develop it. So there's this international knowledge exchange in September, which some of you have already indicated you're able to attend, which is fantastic. It's in Paris in mid-September. I think if someone can put the dates down, that would be really helpful. That's an opportunity for us to sort of come together and, similar to what we're doing today as a group, reflect and think about the process, and also perhaps put in place any other processes that we might want to do to improve the whole experience. I'm going to stop because it is midday, and I'm keen for us to sort of keep to time. I really hope that's made some sort of sense. We're going to send a follow-up email, and I'll send a follow-up video that helps clarify this to you guys, and also for those that aren't able to attend today.
I'm also happy to hang out for a few minutes afterwards if there are any other questions that people have, any kind of practical questions. I know there are some kind of fiddly things around payment for mentors' time, for example, that we haven't given you any details on yet. But yeah, things like that, or anything else, we'll just hang out afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. I've got nothing more to add myself. As if I'm going to just pass back to Yvette and Suzanne, who I really appreciate your time today as well, guys. I think that was superb. Really enjoyed your input, and I've learned a lot myself. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we close?
Not for me. I think.
Yeah. Not for me, but happy to continue the conversation with anyone in support of the project if that is helpful. And you know, the offer of coaching is there if that's appropriate as well. So it's awesome to be invited into this space that around something that has real world impact, and I just wish you all the very best in your endeavours, and you are going to have some great conversations. I know you will.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Wonderful.
Okay. That's it from us then, I think. Thank you very much for your participation today. Yeah, we'll be hanging around for a few moments as well, as Chris said. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.